Every great empire, every fortune, every legacy of success began not with money, not with connections, not even with luck, but with a mental rule. A law so simple that most overlook it, yet so powerful that it has built every empire of wealth the world has ever known. That rule is this: we become what we think about. Most of the time, your mind is the soil. Your thoughts are the seeds. Whatever you plant will grow. Plant thoughts of abundance, creation, and value, and your life will mirror them. Plant doubt, fear, and limitation, and those too will take root and thrive. We live in a world that reflects our inner world. The circumstances around us are merely the shadows of what we continually hold in our minds. A person who believes he is destined to prosper begins to act, to speak, and to decide like someone who will prosper. And those small inner decisions become the bricks of an empire. Now, there are 6 mental principles, 6 rules of wealth consciousness, that form the foundation of every great life and fortune. Learn them, and you'll never look at the world the same way again. Every great fortune, every thriving business, every empire of wealth that has ever been built began with one simple mental rule. This rule is not a secret, yet very few people truly live by. It is a law as certain as gravity, invisible but unbreakable. It states that we become what we think about most of the time. The mind is the original workshop where all wealth is first created. Every building, every invention, every work of art, and every enterprise began as a single thought in someone's mind. Before it was a reality in the outer world, it was a picture in the inner world. This is the mental rule that built every empire of wealth throughout history. The human mind is the most powerful mechanism ever discovered. It takes whatever is repeatedly fed to it and turns it into physical form. When you fill it with fear, doubt, and limitation, it produces failure and frustration. When you fill it with confidence, courage, and creative purpose, it produces success and abundance. The key is understanding that the mind cannot differentiate between what is real and what is imagined. It only reacts to the dominant thought. Therefore, the person who carefully chooses his thoughts chooses his destiny. This is why those who master their mental environment eventually master their material one. The first step toward building wealth, then, is to guard your thoughts. Most people allow their minds to wander aimlessly, like a garden left untended. Weeds of fear and worry quickly take root, choking out every useful seed. But the person who cultivates the garden of the mind, planting only those seeds that produce value, begins to see life change in remarkable ways. Ideas come more easily. Opportunities appear. People are drawn to the energy of confidence and purpose. What was once impossible starts to seem inevitable. Every wealthy person, whether they are aware of it or not, has applied this mental rule. They focus their thoughts on growth, service, and value long before they saw any physical evidence of success. They learn to live by the law of dominant thought. Whatever occupies your mind consistently will manifest in your experience. The great entrepreneurs, inventors, and visionaries of history all saw the invisible before others could. They refused to think in terms of limitation. Their imagination became their compass, and their belief became the foundation of their achievement. Alongside this rule comes the realization that life will always mirror your internal beliefs. If you believe the world is unfair, it will present you with endless evidence to confirm it. If you believe the world is full of opportunity, you will find doors where others see only walls. Wealth is not the result of chance, but of mental alignment with abundance. It begins with assuming responsibility for everything that happens to you. The moment you stop blaming circumstances and start seeing yourself as the cause of your results, you move from victim to creator. Responsibility is power, the power to shape, to change, and to build. True wealth also demands that you understand the law of service. Every great fortune has been earned by improving the lives of others. Money flows in proportion to the value you provide. The marketplace always rewards contribution, not need. When your thoughts are centered on how to give more, how to serve better, and how to solve greater problems, you activate a mental magnet that draws abundance toward you. You stop asking, "How can I get?" and begin asking, "How can I become the person who gives something the world truly needs?" The more you think in this direction, the more the world opens itself to you. Another aspect of this mental rule is the power of expectation. You do not get what you merely want, you get what you expect. Expectation is belief in action. It is the quiet assurance that what you desire will come to pass. The person who expects success prepares for it, acts on it, and unconsciously moves toward it. Expectation is the invisible bridge between thought and manifestation. When you truly expect to prosper, every decision begins to align with that expectation. But none of this can exist without persistence. The mind must be trained to continue holding its dominant thought even when results are slow, when progress is unseen, when challenges seem endless. Most people give up too soon, changing their mental direction before their efforts have had time to mature. The persistent thinker keeps the vision alive long enough for it to grow roots. Persistence transforms thought into reality. Finally, the mental rule of wealth demands that your thoughts be centered on creation, not consumption. The world's greatest fortunes belong to those who build, invent, and innovate. They produce more value than they consume. Their thoughts revolve around contribution, not comfort. When your inner world is filled with creative purpose, your outer world begins to overflow with material reward. Everything begins in the mind, every empire of wealth, every invention. Every success story was once just a thought that someone refused to let die. The mind, guided by discipline, service, and persistence, becomes a tool of limitless creation. Wealth is not something to be chased. It is something to be cultivated within. The outer result is only the reflection of the inner pattern. When you master the pattern, the result cannot help but appear. The rule of responsibility is the turning point in every person's life who rises from ordinary to extraordinary. It is the moment one decides to stop blaming, stop excusing, and stop waiting for someone else to change the circumstances. Every empire of wealth has been built on this single foundation, the acceptance of complete responsibility for one's thoughts, actions, and results. Nothing changes until a person realizes that they are the cause of everything that happens to them. The unsuccessful person looks for someone to fault, the economy, the government, a partner, or luck, while the successful person looks only within. Responsibility is not a burden, it is freedom. It is the realization that if you created the problem through your thinking, you can create the solution through new thinking. From the moment you accept full responsibility, life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you direct. The person who takes responsibility says, "If it's going to be, it's up to me." That simple idea separates those who build empires from those who merely dream about them. The one who accepts this rule never waits for ideal conditions, never complains about the past, and never explains away a failure. They learn from it, adjust, and move forward. Responsibility puts the power back where it belongs, in your own hands. When you understand this, you stop giving your energy to excuses and begin using that energy to create results. Every great achievement has been the result of someone taking responsibility for a vision that others ignored. They didn't wait for permission or support. They made a decision to act. They looked at the resources they had, however small, and made something of them. Responsibility is the seed of initiative. When you say, "I am responsible," you awaken your creativity. You begin to see opportunities instead of obstacles. You recognize that every difficulty carries a lesson, every failure a seed of wisdom, every setback a new direction. The person who refuses responsibility repeats the same problems endlessly. The one who accepts it learns, grows, and rises higher with every experience. Wealth always begins with this mental shift. Until you accept responsibility, you remain powerless. The moment you take it, you become unstoppable. The wealthy thinker understands that external circumstances are temporary reflections of internal patterns. They know that their income, their success, and their relationships all mirror their dominant thoughts and beliefs. When something isn't working, they don't curse the mirror. They change the reflection. They change themselves. That is the true meaning of responsibility. It is the ability to respond, not react. The power of responsibility transforms a person's relationship with time. Instead of wasting hours blaming, worrying, or regretting, the responsible mind focuses on action. It understands that time is the most valuable form of capital. Every minute spent in complaint is a minute stolen from creation. The person who is responsible uses time deliberately. They plan, they decide, they act, and they adjust. This mindset multiplies productivity and builds momentum, and with momentum comes wealth. Responsibility creates order out of chaos because it demands clarity of purpose. In every industry, those who rise to the top are the ones who take ownership of results. They never say, "It wasn't my fault." They say, "It was my responsibility and I will fix it." This attitude builds trust, respect, and influence. People naturally follow those who take ownership, because leadership itself is responsibility in action. The leader accepts the risk, absorbs the pressure, and carries the vision forward. That is why responsibility is the mark of all great builders of wealth. It transforms ordinary people into leaders of purpose. When a person accepts responsibility, they also develop resilience. They stop being crushed by failure because they see it as feedback, not finality. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" they ask, "What can I learn from this?" That single question turns pain into power. Every adversity carries with it the potential for greater strength, but only the responsible mind extracts the lesson. Responsibility allows you to rise above circumstances instead of being trapped by them. There is a subtle but profound truth that accompanies this rule. Responsibility attracts opportunity. The world has a way of rewarding those who can be trusted with results. When you take ownership of your actions and outcomes, people notice. They see reliability, integrity, and initiative. These are the rarest qualities in any field, and they are always rewarded. Employers promote them, investors trust them, and partners seek them out. Responsibility becomes a magnet for advancement and prosperity. The rule of responsibility also extends to thought. You are responsible not only for what you do, but for what you think, because your thoughts eventually shape your actions. The person who allows resentment, envy, or fear to dominate their mind will act in ways that destroy opportunity. The person who fills their mind with gratitude, courage, and possibility will act in ways that create it. Responsibility means being the guardian of your inner world. It means choosing your mental diet as carefully as you would choose your physical one. Finally, responsibility creates dignity. It gives a person a sense of control over their destiny. When you stop waiting for rescue and begin building your own path, life gains new meaning. Every challenge becomes a chance to prove your strength, every decision a demonstration of your purpose. Responsibility is the invisible bridge between who you are and who you are meant to become. It is the rule that built every empire of wealth, because it demands ownership, initiative, and growth from all who obey it. All true wealth begins with service. Every great fortune, every enduring legacy, every empire of abundance has been built upon this unshakable principle. The person who serves the greatest number of people in the best possible way inevitably rises to wealth, because service is the foundation upon which prosperity stands. The rule is simple yet profound. To receive more, you must first become more. To be valuable in the marketplace, you must learn to add value. Every business that thrives, every individual who prospers, and every nation that advances does so by improving the lives of others. Service is the invisible force that connects effort with reward, cause with effect, and thought with achievement. Most people make the mistake of chasing money instead of mastering service. They ask, how can I get more? While the wealthy thinker asks, how can I give more? Money is never the cause. It is the effect. It flows naturally toward those who solve problems, create solutions, and deliver excellence. When you shift your mind from taking to giving, from scarcity to contribution, everything begins to change. Opportunities start to appear, relationships deepen, and your reputation grows stronger. The marketplace has an unerring way of recognizing and rewarding genuine service. You may not see the results immediately, but the law is exact. What you plant in service, you will harvest in reward. The great builders of wealth understood that service is the bridge between imagination and reality. They took an idea, refined it through dedication, and used it to serve others. The person who discovers a way to make life easier, simpler, or better for others writes their own ticket to prosperity. The world does not pay for effort alone. It pays for results, for solutions, for value delivered. Every product you use, every convenience you enjoy, every advancement in technology or comfort exists because someone chose to serve. When you look deeply, you realize that the richest among us are those who have found the most meaningful ways to meet human needs. Service also shapes character. It removes selfishness and replaces it with purpose. When your mind is fixed on helping others, fear and doubt begin to fade because your attention is directed outward. You stop worrying about what you lack and start focusing on what you can contribute. This mental shift creates confidence, energy, and joy. You begin to understand that real fulfillment comes not from accumulation, but from creation. The act of service aligns you with the natural flow of life, because life itself is about giving. The sun gives light, the rain gives nourishment, the tree gives shade and fruit. Everything in nature serves something beyond itself, and in doing so it thrives. Those who serve best also understand the importance of excellence. Mediocrity in service brings mediocrity in reward. The person who rises to the top in any field is the one who does more than expected, who goes the extra step, who takes pride in every detail. Excellence in service is rare, and rarity commands value. The world is full of people doing the minimum, but it rewards extravagantly those who do the maximum. The professional who shows care, the worker who gives more than they are paid for, the entrepreneur who focuses on quality before profit, all are practicing the law of service in its purest form. Service creates expansion. Every time you find a better way to serve, you expand your influence, your impact, and your income. The smallest improvement in the way you serve can multiply your results many times over. That is why the greatest companies and leaders are constantly searching for ways to innovate and improve their service. They understand that service is a living thing. It grows or it dies. To stop improving is to start declining. The mind devoted to service is always learning, observing, and adapting. It never stands still because it knows that stagnation is the enemy of success. The rule of service also governs human relationships. Whether in business, friendship, or family, those who serve others with sincerity are the ones who gain trust, love, and loyalty. Service is not submission, it is strength expressed through giving. It builds influence and goodwill. When you make others feel valued, they respond in kind. The law of reciprocity ensures that what you send out returns to you multiplied. The one who serves with a genuine heart never needs to beg for opportunity. It finds them. To live by the rule of service is to live in alignment with truth. Every great teacher, philosopher, and thinker throughout history has taught that greatness is found in giving. Service refines the spirit, sharpens the mind, and strengthens the will. It teaches patience, discipline, and gratitude. It turns ordinary work into art and transforms obligation into purpose. When you dedicate yourself to service, you rise above competition because you stop trying to outdo others and instead focus on outserving them. The world will always open its doors to the person who can make life better for others. The secret is to make service your mindset, not just your method. It is not something you do occasionally, but something you become. Every thought, every word, every action can be a form of service when it's done with intention and integrity. The smallest act of excellence can create ripples of influence far beyond what you can see. Service builds reputation, and reputation builds wealth. Those who serve deeply never struggle to attract abundance, because abundance naturally seeks those who give it reason to exist. You do not get what you want, you get what you expect. Expectation is one of the most powerful mental forces in existence, quietly shaping the circumstances of your life long before any visible result appears. It is the mental equivalent of a blueprint. What you consistently expect, whether success or failure, abundance or limitation, becomes the pattern your mind works to fulfill. The person who expects success begins to behave in ways that create it, often without realizing it. The person who expects disappointment invites it through hesitation, doubt, and fear. Every empire of wealth, every great accomplishment, every triumph of the human spirit began in the same way, with expectation. Expectation is faith in motion. It is belief taking shape. When you truly expect something, your entire being organizes itself around that idea. Your thoughts align, your emotions harmonize, and your actions naturally follow the course you've set in your mind. It is impossible to act with conviction toward an outcome you secretly doubt. Expectation eliminates that doubt. It gives the mind a clear target, and the mind, being creative by nature, begins to move toward that target with precision. Every opportunity that matches your expectation becomes visible, while those that contradict it fade into the background. Most people misunderstand the difference between wishing and expecting. A wish is a hope without foundation. It says, I want this to happen. But expectation says, well, I know this will happen. One is passive, the other is active. One waits for luck, the other creates direction. Wealth is never built on wishes. It is built on the firm mental posture of expectation backed by disciplined effort. The person who expects success prepares for it, studies for it, plans for it, and takes steps in alignment with it. Expectation draws results because it dictates behavior. You act differently when you expect victory than when you merely hope for it. Expectation is also contagious. The person who walks into a room with the quiet certainty that they will succeed influences everyone around them. Confidence radiates from their presence, and others respond to it. Opportunities gravitate toward those who expect to make things happen. Life mirrors the energy you project, and expectation is the highest form of confident energy. When you expect the best, people want to be part of your vision. They sense direction, clarity, and purpose, and they are drawn to it. The rule of expectation also applies to failure. Many people unconsciously expect things to go wrong. They prepare more for disaster than for success. They dwell on obstacles, talk about bad luck, and convince themselves that others have an advantage they don't. As a result, their actions become defensive instead of creative. They hesitate where they should move forward, doubt where they should trust, and settle where they should strive. The mind fulfills whatever it is trained to expect. Fearful expectation produces fearful results just as surely as confident expectation produces successful ones. The law is impartial. It gives back what you project. Expectation must be cultivated daily. It grows through repetition, visualization, and belief. Every morning you have a choice about what you expect from the day ahead. Most people begin the day with vague anticipation or even quiet dread. The successful person begins with a clear inner picture of what they intend to happen. They see their goals completed, their efforts rewarded, their plans unfolding. This inner movie directs their behavior unconsciously throughout the day. Expectation is mental rehearsal, and the mind performs what it practices. When you expect abundance, you think and act abundantly. When you expect progress, you make it. The outer world bends to the pattern of the inner one. There is also a subtle strength that comes with expectation. It breeds patience and steadiness. The person who expects success doesn't panic when results are slow. They understand that growth takes time, that harvest follows planting. Their expectation sustains them through difficulty. They remain calm where others grow restless because they have already seen the outcome in their mind. This unshakable belief becomes a magnet for opportunity and people who share their vision. Expectation turns adversity into preparation. When faced with obstacles, those who expect success interpret them as part of the process rather than as signs of failure. Their question is never, will I succeed? But what must I learn from this to succeed? This mindset keeps them creative, flexible, and forward-moving. Because they expect the end result to be favorable, every challenge simply becomes another step toward fulfillment. Wealth builders in every field have used this rule, consciously or not. They visualized success long before it appeared. They lived mentally in the reality they desired until it began to materialize physically. Expectation guided their decisions, attracted allies, and repelled distractions. They expected growth, so they kept growing. They expected abundance, so they found ways to create value. They expected opportunity, and so they recognized it when it arrived. Expectation is the language through which the mind communicates with the universe of possibilities. It signals what you are ready to receive. When you expect greatness, you begin to align with it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The smallest thought of certainty can set in motion forces that shape the future in your favor. Every empire of wealth, every revolution of progress, every personal victory began with one individual who dared to expect success when others doubted it. Expectation is not arrogance. It is clarity of vision combined with faith and action. It is the invisible engine behind all creation and the mental rule that determines the boundaries of what is possible. Persistence is the hidden strength behind every great success. It is the quiet power that turns ordinary effort into extraordinary achievement. Every empire of wealth, every enduring accomplishment, every story of triumph over difficulty is built upon this one mental discipline. Talent can be wasted, intelligence can be misdirected, opportunity can be missed, but persistence overcomes all. It is the refusal to quit when the outcome is uncertain, the courage to keep moving when progress seems invisible. The person who persists has mastered one of life's greatest laws, that consistent effort applied toward a definite purpose eventually bends reality in their favor. Persistence begins as a decision. It is not a gift some are born with, but a habit developed through repeated choice. Each time you continue when it would be easier to stop, you strengthen the muscle of will. Each time you rise after a setback, you teach your mind that defeat is only temporary. Persistence is born in those small moments of resistance when comfort tempts you to surrender. It grows quietly, without applause, through discipline, routine, and repetition. The person who persists long enough discovers that success is not a sudden leap, but a gradual climb built on countless unseen efforts. Every person who has achieved greatness has faced moments of doubt, failure, and frustration. The difference between them and the ones who gave up lies in what they decided to believe about those moments. The persistent mind sees failure as feedback, not finality. It studies the lesson, adjusts the approach, and tries again with renewed understanding. The quitter interprets failure as proof of limitation, but the persistent thinker sees it as a teacher. This difference in attitude creates entirely different destinies. Persistence transforms obstacles into stepping stones because it refuses to see any experience as wasted. The law of persistence also governs time. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a short period and underestimate what they can achieve through steady effort over years. Time rewards those who stay. The world is full of people who start strong and fade quickly, whose enthusiasm burns brightly but briefly. The persistent individual understands that lasting wealth and mastery require endurance. They are willing to work quietly, unseen, for as long as it takes. They trust the process even when no one else does. Time becomes their ally because each day of consistent action compounds upon the last, turning small efforts into monumental results. Persistence gives shape to vision. A dream without persistence is only imagination, but persistence gives imagination form and direction. It keeps the vision alive through droughts of motivation and storms of difficulty. When challenges arise, as they always do, persistence steadies the hand and clears the mind. It whispers that progress is being made even when no evidence appears. This steady faith separates those who wish from those who create. The persistent mind does not depend on emotion to continue. It depends on commitment. Feelings may fluctuate, but commitment endures. There is a rhythm to persistence. It requires rest but not retreat, reflection but not regret. It balances intensity with patience. The person who persists learns to pace themselves to sustain effort over time without burnout. They understand that persistence is not about endless strain but about steady direction. A river does not carve a canyon in a day. It does so through continuous flow. Likewise, persistent effort wears down resistance, opens doors, and transforms potential into achievement. Persistence also builds character. It strengthens patience, humility, and resilience. Every time you persevere through difficulty, you become tougher, wiser, and more capable. Wealth, success, and influence are merely the visible signs of an invisible strength that persistence builds within. The persistent person becomes unshakable, not because life becomes easy, but because they become unbreakable. They learn that every setback carries a gift, that struggle reveals hidden capacity, and that endurance is the highest form of power. The mind trained in persistence gains a new relationship with failure. It stops fearing it and begins to use it. Each failure becomes information, each delay a chance to refine. Persistence transforms uncertainty into discovery. Those who lack persistence chase novelty. They change direction with every new idea, abandoning their course before it bears fruit. The persistent person stays long enough to see results, long enough to build depth. In a world of distraction, persistence becomes a rare advantage. Persistence is the final test of belief. It asks whether you truly trust your vision or merely like the idea of it. Many start the journey with enthusiasm, but abandon it when faced with discomfort. The persistent thinker understands that discomfort is proof of growth, not a signal to quit. They walk forward when others turn back. They trust that continued action, guided by clear purpose, will eventually summon the resources, opportunities, and results they seek. The world yields only to those who refuse to yield. Every breakthrough in history has come from persistence. The inventor who tried 1,000 times before success, the leader who refused to surrender in defeat, the dreamer who held the vision when others mocked it. Persistence is the unseen force that turns thought into reality, that bridges the gap between intention and fulfillment. It does not ask for brilliance or luck, only endurance. Those who master this rule discover that time itself begins to cooperate with them. The path clears, the pieces align, and what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. Money flows naturally to those who create value. It always has and always will. The rule of value creation is the law upon which every fortune, every business, and every empire of wealth has been built. Wealth is not something you pursue directly. It is something that follows service, innovation, and usefulness. Those who focus on giving more to the world than they take from it inevitably attract prosperity, because value is the true currency of life. The measure of your success will always be equal to the measure of value you bring to others. When you understand this, you stop chasing money and start building worth. Everything that has ever created progress in the world has been born out of the desire to add value. Every invention, every company, every movement that has changed lives began with someone asking, "How can this be made better?" The greatest wealth builders did not seek fortune first. They sought improvement. They found ways to make life easier, faster, safer, or more joyful for others, and as a result, wealth became the natural outcome. The person who focuses on value never has to beg for opportunity because the world constantly seeks solutions, and those who provide them are rewarded beyond measure. The rule of value creation begins in the mind. You must see yourself as a creator, not a consumer. Consumers drain, creators sustain. When your thoughts revolve around what you can contribute rather than what you can receive, you enter a different mental frequency, the frequency of abundance. You begin to see possibilities everywhere, because your attention is no longer fixed on lack but on potential. The creative mind is never idle. It is always searching for ways to make something better, simpler, or more meaningful. The more you develop this ability, the more indispensable you become to others, and the flow of money will follow naturally. Value creation is not limited to business. It is a mindset that can be applied to every area of life. The teacher who inspires students, the artist who uplifts through beauty, the leader who solves problems, and the worker who performs with excellence, all are creating value. Each is planting seeds of prosperity in their own way. The law of compensation ensures that the universe pays you according to the value you deliver, whether in money, opportunity, or influence. You cannot create genuine value without eventually being rewarded for it. It may not come immediately, but it always arrives in the right measure and time. To create value, you must first understand people. You must know what they want, what they need, what they fear, and what they dream of. Every great creator has been a great observer. They listen more than they speak. They study human behavior not to manipulate it, but to serve it. The more accurately you can identify a need, the more valuable you become. The wealthiest minds are those that see what others overlook and provide what others neglect. They recognize that money is nothing more than a certificate of value received. When you give enough people what they want, you will never have to worry about what you want. Value creation also requires constant growth. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. The more you develop your skills, knowledge, and understanding, the greater your capacity to serve becomes. Wealth flows through those who expand their ability to contribute. That is why personal development is not luxury, it is necessity. Every hour spent learning, refining, and improving multiplies your potential for reward. When you become more valuable, you attract better opportunities, better relationships, and better outcomes. The outer reward always mirrors the inner growth. Another aspect of value creation is innovation, the courage to think differently. Those who build empires do not simply copy what others have done, they elevate it. They question the ordinary and challenge the accepted. Innovation is the art of bringing new value to life. It demands curiosity, persistence, and imagination. It is born from the willingness to experiment, to fail, and to try again. Every major leap in wealth or progress has come from someone who refused to accept that things had to remain as they were. The creative mind asks, "What if?" and then sets out to find the answer. Value creation is also deeply tied to integrity. You cannot build lasting wealth without trust, and you cannot earn trust without honesty. True value benefits everyone involved. It uplifts, it strengthens, it endures. Deceptive or selfish value may produce short-term gain, but it always collapses under the weight of its own greed. Real wealth is sustainable because it is built on fairness and respect. When you conduct yourself with integrity, people return again and again, and your influence grows naturally. Trust is the highest form of value you can create, and once you possess it, the world opens its doors to you. The rule of value creation also reminds us that contribution must exceed expectation. The person who gives more than they are paid for will soon be paid for more than they give. Every act of going beyond the call of duty multiplies your worth in the eyes of others. The smallest details, kindness, precision, reliability, passion, turn ordinary service into exceptional value. Excellence is rare, and rarity commands a higher price. To create extraordinary wealth, you must provide extraordinary value. The more you live by this rule, the less you will worry about money, because you will realize that money is simply the shadow cast by value. Wherever genuine value goes, money follows. Your task is not to chase wealth, but to chase mastery, to become so skilled, so dependable, and so creative in your field that the world cannot ignore you. The greatest empires of wealth were not built on greed, but on contribution. On the simple yet powerful idea that the more you give, the more you grow, and the more you grow, the more you can give.